Tonight, terrorism has moved from Syria to Paris and now to Los Angeles. It's December 3rd. You're watching The Ezra Levant Show.
Why should others go to jail when you're the biggest carbon consumer I know?
There's 8,500 customers here, and you won't give them an answer.
You come here once a year with a sign, and you feel morally superior.
The only thing I have to say to the government about why I publish it is because it's my bloody right to do so.
Welcome to the program. Yesterday, Muslim terrorists slaughtered 14 people in San Bernardino, California, a suburb of Los Angeles. They injured 17 more. The attack was at a social services office for severely disabled people. It took several hours for the facts to emerge. There was the mass murder, then a chase, then a shootout. There were multiple terrorists. Police later found bombs planted at the building. At first, police described some details about the shooters, but not other details. Even once 2 terrorists were killed and captured, they described their clothing, but police wouldn't describe their appearance. That's sort of odd, isn't it? It's almost like they were trying to not see a certain fact. For hours, official statements did not release the names or backgrounds of the killers. That's a little bit odd. So in this information vacuum, the left deployed their usual narrative. This is about gun control and those mean Republicans. Maybe even it's about some white Christian right-winger trying to shoot up an abortion clinic. Some journalist at Bloomberg Googled abortion clinics and found one 2 miles away and thought that must be the connection. Yeah. Hillary Clinton wasn't going to miss this opportunity either. While the bodies were still bleeding, she wrote, "I refuse to accept this as normal. We must take action to stop gun violence now." Yeah, I wish she would have had that sentiment when the U.S. consulate in Benghazi was under attack on her watch. But really, what action would Hillary Clinton call for that Barack Obama hasn't done in the past 7 years as president? Several years of which the Democrats controlled both houses of Congress. That Jerry Brown, the far-left Democrat governor of California, hasn't already done. I mean, murder is already illegal. Shooting people with guns is already against the law, but we need to make it double illegal or triple illegal or something. This attack was on the West Coast, so East Coast newspapers had to write their news stories before all the facts were in. There's 3 time zones in between. So here's what the New York Daily News put on their front page. They quoted different Republican Party personalities sending their thoughts and prayers to the victims. And look, they highlighted the word prayers and mocked it. God isn't fixing this, they said. These Republicans were cowards who could end the gun scourge, the Daily News said. That's who they blame, not the shooters. President Obama jumped in too. Here, take a listen.
Yeah, we have a pattern now of mass shootings in this country that has no parallel anywhere else in the world. And there's some steps we could take, not to eliminate every one of these mass shootings, but to improve the odds that they don't happen as frequently. Common sense gun safety laws, stronger background checks.
It's an odd thing to say that mass shootings in the States have no international parallel just 2 weeks after Muslim terrorists shot hundreds of people in Paris. And it's even more bizarre to think that this is a gun safety issue, like maybe this military-style terrorist attack was someone who didn't have the trigger lock on or something. I think the strangest is the philosophy that it's a pass another law issue. Look, it's already illegal to murder people. In California, it's illegal to do many things with a gun. It's one of the most restricted states. Everything from what kind of guns you can have to how many bullets in the magazine to how long you have to wait to get a gun. It's already illegal. That's the thing about terrorists and ordinary criminals too. They have decided in advance to break the law. If you are fine with murder, you are probably fine breaking some paperwork requirement or some background check. The terrorists threw pipe bombs out of their SUV as they sped away. As I mentioned, they planted bombs at the building they attacked too. I guess you could have a ban pipe bomb law or ban pipes or, I don't know, ban the chemicals that make explosives, ban knives. It's not going to stop terrorists, but it's easier to blame an inanimate object like a gun than to say the words Muslim terrorism. The facts finally came out after the liberal media blamed Republicans and demanded more gun control. The terrorists were Saeed Farouk. his Saudi-born mail-order wife, Tashfeen Malik, and Farouk's brothers reportedly captured and detained by police too. Farouk was described by his family as a very religious Muslim. He traveled recently to Saudi Arabia. His YouTube homepage had videos about Muslim propaganda on them, but still, never miss an opportunity to blame storm a tragedy with Republicans as the responsible ones here. A few more notes on this issue. According to reports, neighbors were suspicious about Farouk. They were scared about Middle Eastern men coming and going from his home, but they said they didn't want to tell police about it for fear of being called racist. Hey, no problem, neighbor, no one's going to call you racist, but 14 people are dead. Hey, at least no one called you racist. Another point, Farouk and Malik had a little baby. They dropped off their baby girl with Farouk's mother and then went to do their murder. Yeah, the jihad is for moms now, too. What do you think this means? I go back to what Daniel Pipes said after Paris. Ordinary people are moving to the right. They want less Muslim migration. They want a tougher line on terrorism. They want less political correctness. They want to live. But the official people, the 4P professionals, politicians, the press, professors, now even police, they are moving harder to the left, into denial. You saw it here, politicians and the press jumping to conclusions that terrorism was white and Christian and Republican. And when it wasn't, they pivoted immediately to watch out for an Islamophobia backlash. Yeah, people having hard feelings about radical Islam is the real tragedy here, isn't it? And you see it in the police. Their fear of describing the terrorists as Muslim, and that fear trickling into the community that was afraid to report the anti-terrorism motto, see something, say something. No, they were afraid. So yeah, Muslim terrorists kill another 14 people, injure 17. Do you doubt for a minute that Barack Obama and Justin Trudeau plan to continue importing poorly vetted Muslim migrants from Syria to our continent by the tens of thousands? Stay with us. After the break, I talked to Dr. John Lott, America's leading expert on shooting sprees.
Looking for the perfect gift? Did you know TheRebel.media has a store? Make a statement with a t-shirt. Have your morning coffee in a Fearless Travel coffee mug. There's even an Ezra Levant bobblehead. It's a one-stop shop for the perfect gift. And don't forget to pick up something for yourself. Go to TheRebel.media/store to find out more.
Welcome back to the program. We're talking about the mass murder in Los Angeles, which turned out to be a terrorist attack. And joining us now via Skype from Nashville is our friend Dr. John Lott of the Crime Prevention Research Center. Welcome to the program, Dr. Lott. We've talked to you before at the Sun News Network. I think this is the first time we've had you on here at The Rebel. Good to see you again.
It's great to talk to you again, Ezra.
Now, we are brought together by another terrible event. This is a mass shooting in San Bernardino, which is a suburb of Los Angeles. What was fascinating to me, before we talk about shooting sprees and mass shootings, which is your area of scientific expertise, just a political comment first. It was fascinating to me to see the desperate lust on the part of gun control activists that this mass shooting was done by white, Christian, Republican, right-wingers. It was almost a desperate hope that this was not a Muslim terrorist attack. It's so politicized, the difference of how the media responds if it's a Muslim terrorist attack or, say, a shooting at an abortion clinic, isn't it?
Oh, sure. I mean, this hasn't been the first time that they've kind of rushed to judgment on the characteristics of the people. I was hearing multiple times yesterday on CNN, for example, that they thought for sure that it was some type of, domestic white terrorism type group, some white supremacy group or a militia group or something like that. They were just sure that it was that because, I mean, it was unusual in the fact that you had multiple attackers. So I could understand why you would think that it would be some type of organized terrorist effort, but then they were poo-pooing the fact that it could be anything other than a militia group, for example.
Immediately, Hillary Clinton issued a very brief statement on Twitter calling for more firearms laws. California has some of the strictest gun laws in America, but in every state in the Union and in Canada and in the entire world, other than some rogue spots like the Islamic State, in the entire world, murder is already illegal. Shooting people is already illegal. This reflex on the left to just pass another gun law. They've passed hundreds in California. Obviously, if someone sets out to commit terror, they're not going to check what the statute says first.
Right. Well, the problem is, obviously, the big law that Hillary Clinton, as well as the President Barack Obama, has been pushing has been these so-called expanded background checks, which basically are background checks on the private transfer of guns. California has that law. Colorado, before the Planned Parenthood shooting last Friday, has that law. Oregon, with the community college shooting there, has that law. Paris, France, and Belgium, where you've had terrorist attacks over there, have those laws. Look, you can't point to one single one of these mass public shootings that would have been stopped as a result of having this law, even though after all these attacks, the president gets out there and he calls for this law. He has changed his tune a little bit, and he says, well, we can't expect this law that he's been pushing to stop all these attacks. I just want to know one single one of these mass public shootings where the law would have made a difference. The reason why they pushed this law, I don't believe, has anything to do with stopping these attacks, though. I think the reason why they pushed this law is to make it costly for law-abiding citizens who do go through these background checks for getting a gun. So, for example, in New York, it adds about $80 onto the cost of somebody getting a gun. In Colorado, it adds about $60. In Washington, D.C., it adds about $200 onto the cost of obtaining a gun. And the thing is, that's a real tax. It may not stop you or myself from being able to go and buy a gun, but my research finds it's poor blacks who live in high-crime urban areas who benefit the most from having a gun, and having a $60 or $80 or $200 tax effectively on people obtaining a gun might make a real difference between whether or not they can obtain it or not. I'll just give you one simple example to prove this point, and that is in Colorado in 2013, when they adopted this expanded background check, I had this idea to put up an amendment on the bill that would exempt people below the poverty level from having to pay the new state tax part of the fee. And with the exception of two pro-gun Democrats, every other Democrat in the state legislature voted against exempting people below the poverty level from having to pay this tax. A similar thing occurred in Maryland that same year. So, you know, I don't know how many taxes you can find that Democrats would essentially vote unanimously against exempting people below the poverty level from paying. My guess is probably no other tax. But it just gives you an idea that the important thing is the tax, not the rule that they have.
Doctor, I want to ask you a question. I ask you this all the time after a shooting spree. I mean, you have studied, it's really your area of expertise, these shooting sprees, and you approach it not from an ideological or a moral point of view, as many people do, as our friend John Robson does. You approach it from a pragmatic, statistical view. What stops crime? I mean, that's the name of your research center. And you point out that so many of these shooting sprees are in areas that are, quote, gun-free zones, and that if it is sort of a lone wolf attacker who's plotting his blaze of glory, he chooses the place where he thinks that there will be less likely to be another gun to stop him. I mean, here's what I've learned from you, and you tell me how this applies here. The only thing that stops a shooting spree, whether it's a lone wolf, a crazy person, or in this case, a terrorist attack, the only thing that stops one gun is another gun, either by a policeman who brings it, if the crazy person kills himself, or if some bystander who has a firearm on himself stops it. I mean, when there is a gun, when there is a shooting event, only another gun can stop it. And that's what I think these anti-gun extremists don't get, is if you actually want to save lives, you got to do what Israel does. have everyone on the street with a gun so that there's no such thing as a 14-person shooting spree. Last word to you, Doctor.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with you. Look, it'd be nice if we lived in a world without violence, but as I'm sure people in Paris can attest to, we don't live in that type of world. There are real threats that are there. It'd be nice if there weren't criminals. My research finds that the police are extremely important. I think the police are the single most important factor for reducing violent crime. But police have a very difficult job, especially when you're talking about stopping these types of terrorist attacks. To have somebody in uniform out in front of a building that's guarding it, they're the first targets. Either that or the terrorists wait until they leave the scene, or they go and pick some other target there. These guys are sitting ducks, essentially, out there in uniform. And so the advantage of concealed carry is that even when the police leave the scene, the terrorist still doesn't know who they are supposed to attack first. It takes away their strategic advantage. And I could go on for a long time talking about example after example where these killers and these mass public shootings purposely pick places where they know people can't defend themselves to attack. I know we're running out of time. I just want to give you one fact that I just came across. If you look at this year in Paris, they've had, for all the three mass public shootings that they've had 508 casualties, woundings and killings that are there. In the United States, if you look at all the mass public shootings since the beginning of the Obama presidency in 2009, so about 7 years, we've had 424 casualties. So Paris, in this year, 2015, has had more casualties from mass public shootings than all the mass public shootings in the United States during Obama's entire presidency.
Isn't that interesting? And the left would say, oh, you're just inviting a Wild West, shoot 'em up if you allow people to protect themselves. You know, if there was someone in the Bataclan Cafe in Paris, one person with a sidearm, maybe that death toll would have been lower. Doctor, great to talk to you again. I look forward to keeping in touch. We'll do better with our audio connection in our next Skype interview. It's great to see you, and keep fighting for common sense and crime prevention, and keep rebutting the disinformation of the left. Great to see you.
People can find more information by going to our website at crimeresearch.org.
crimeresearch.org. All right, got it. We'll make sure our people go there. Take care. We'll talk to you again. Folks, stay with us after the break. Joel Pollack from Breitbart in Los Angeles, the site of this terrorist attack. That's next.
We've heard you loud and clear. You can't get enough Canadian conservative news and opinion. Why not check out our blog? It's all your favorite conservative bloggers together on a page called The Megaphone. Go to TheRebel.media/TheMegaphone or click on the Megaphone menu from our main page to check it out.
And welcome back. We're joined now from Los Angeles by Joel Pollack, one of the editors at Breitbart, not too far away from the terrorist spree in San Bernardino that murdered 14 people, injured 17. Joel, what is the latest from Los Angeles on this terrorist attack? First of all, has the official opinion elite acknowledged that this is Muslim terrorism, or are they still clinging to maybe it's workplace violence or something like that?
Well, just over an hour ago, we heard President Obama say that it was likely workplace violence or terrorism. He seemed to try to bridge both explanations. We had ABC News' Brian Ross saying that it was some kind of hybrid of workplace jihad. So they're striving to find some alternative explanation for this, but it is becoming increasingly clear that it was terrorism. And as CBS News, CNN, the New York Post, and other sources are beginning to report more and more extensive terrorist connections or evidence of terrorist connections, the liberal opinion elites are still trying to shy away from that. In fact, the lead of the Huffington Post right now, as I speak to you, is portraying this as if it were some kind of random gun violence incident. They don't have the word Islamic radicalism anywhere in their headlines. They acknowledge there's a possibility of terrorism, but the way they've set this up is like just one more gun violence problem. This all, of course, began yesterday when they said it was a likely Planned Parenthood attack or an attack on a Planned Parenthood clinic. Then that shifted to kind of random workplace violence and the gun control narrative. Now that that's been exploded, there's an attempt, desperate attempt, to deny that this has got anything to do with Islamic terrorism, and instead they are treating Christians as the problem. The many politicians who tweeted out prayers, including some Democrats, by the way, are being excoriated for not doing more to stop the attacks, i.e. with gun control. And they're being treated as if tweeting your prayers, which is sort of a standard thing people do. Obama's done it on several occasions. Hillary Clinton done it. Somehow evidence of radical religious sentiment and also radical denial of the truth. But of course, she was entirely on the other foot. This is a denial of reality by the left that does not want to acknowledge radical Islamic terror in the United States.
Well, I remember Daniel Pipes, after the Paris terrorist attacks, made an analysis that I keep repeating because I think it's so true. He said that this is going to drive ordinary Frenchmen to the right, and polls show that Marine Le Pen, the Front National, is gaining in polls. But the 4P professionals, politicians, the press, professors, and even police forces that have to talk about terrorism, drive them to the left. And is that happening here? I mean, in Canada, we're still dead set on bringing in now 50,000, the number is, 50,000 Syrian migrants in the next 13 months. Has Barack Obama doubled down on his Muslim migrants plan? Have the left moved harder to the left to counter any public move to the right?
Yes, they have. In fact, this morning, the Democratic National Committee sent out a press release that was a report on a conference call they had yesterday about the Jewish vote ahead of 2016. And they're trying to reassure liberal Jewish voters that they're going to stick with the refugee plan, telling this group of Jewish voters that they, in 1939, were the refugees from World War II in Europe, and they're just like the Syrian refugees today. So the lesson of Jewish history is apparently you have to let in all of these migrants, many of whom are not actually refugees, and some of whom may be among the perpetrators of ethnic violence in the Middle East. We actually don't know. So they're trying to double down on the refugee thing, and they're claiming Republicans are demonizing all Muslims by attacking radical Islam. And that's the message they're putting out today, less than 24 hours after the San Bernardino attacks. So they're not wavering one bit. I think they think it helps them, not in terms of this particular issue, which they may realize they've lost already. I mean, I don't think Democrats will ever be trusted again on terrorism, not in the near future anyway, after Barack Obama. But I think what they're trying to do is just set up or reestablish the idea of Republicans as unempathetic, careless, no sympathy for the weak, and they want people to go to the polls in 2016 thinking that they're voting for Democrats to help them against people who want to hurt them. And I think that's the purpose of setting this up. It's not that people care about Syrian refugees. Most Americans actually don't want Syrian refugees here. The point is simply to portray the Republicans as the uncaring, greedy, bigoted party, and that's why Democrats are doubling down on this, even in the wake of these horrific attacks, which do appear to be Islamic terrorist attacks in San Bernardino.
I think you're right. I think it goes to their narrative that Republicans are racist. Anyone who's concerned about security is racist. I mean, I saw one report that a neighbor felt like reporting Muslim men going in and out of the house, but thought, nah, I shouldn't do that. I'll be called a racist. That kind of fear, I call that Islamophobia, fear of radical Islam, and then Islamophobia, fear of being called Islamic phobia. Joel, it's great to talk to you. Thanks for your insight. Stay safe there in Los Angeles and keep fighting for freedom.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, bye-bye. Stay with us, folks. Your feedback, letters, and tweets after the break.
So open-minded that the brains have fallen out.
What's the point that you're making?
The point that I'm making is that if you're going to propose a massive overhaul to the way the economy is developed in terms of carbon tax, cap and trade, other forms like that, it helps to have some science that is in fact settled.
Welcome back. It's time for your feedback. Margaret disagrees with me about Trudeau's nanny expenses. She says, nope, you were wrong again. Trudeau wanted 24 Sussex Drive to be repaired to a point where it would be safe for his family to live in. Nannies are required for the leader of a country when his schedule and his wife's schedule calls for them both to attend to many of the country's needs. Many require odd times and lengthy times away from their children. This is an expense that has to be paid for. Quit being petty. So 24 Sussex Drive is so decrepit, it is physically dangerous to the Trudeaus. Harper lived there just fine for 9 years, but it's dangerous for the young prince, is it? And by the way, what else should we pay for in Trudeau's personal life? Should we pay for maybe his medicine? Should we pay for, I don't know, what personal expense does a Liberal actually pay for out of his own pocket? This is quite a test. It's amazing to me, not just how far the Liberals will go in their entitlemania, but how far the media party will go to justify it. This in a culture that had a national freakout about a $16 bottle of orange juice by Bev Oda. The Libranos are back. It's incredible. One last thing, by the way. These nannies, it turns out, were on the Trudeau family payroll before they won the election. Now they're just trying to foist that existing cost they had on the taxpayers. This is outrageous. Here's a letter from Sam Young, who writes about yesterday's monologue about the oil patch secret deals and says, the oil companies and the NDP in bed together? Now that's an unholy alliance that none of us could have ever dreamed of. Ezra, keep covering this. We need to know the truth. Well, that's what's so terrifying here, is that the people who are supposed to be standing on guard for the province's freedoms, for economic freedom, for small taxes, they have colluded with the NDP and with anti-oil environmentalist lobbyists to bring in this carbon tax. And that was the big revelation in yesterday's Financial Post. These 4 oil tycoons struck a secret deal with 4 anti-oil lobbyists, with the NDP agreeing to the carbon cap and carbon tax. They're all in it together. That is the kind of crony capitalism that exists under the NDP. And the little guy's going to be stuck with the carbon tax. I predict that this will create a wedge between people who work in the oil and gas industry and these 4 tycoons who pulled a fast one on democracy. Here's a little bit of hate mail. Brian, a different Brian, writes, "You're an idiot." Hey, could be, Brian, but you're the one who's watching and taking the time to write. Don't stop. And Jack writes, "Ezra, put your head in the toilet and flush." Come on, is that seriously the best rebuttal you've got? I mean, at least come up with a creative insult, something to make me laugh. Or if you can muster it, come up with an argument. You just say what you think I'm wrong about. Don't just hurl an insult. But you know what? I gotta say it. Every time a hater watches the show, I don't know, an angel gets their wings, because it makes me feel good that we are providing something interesting enough that people love us and people hate us, but they're all watching. We are growing every day. We are the place to go for the other side of the story. If you want to give your feedback to me, insult me, or say something smart, your choice. You can do so on Facebook, via Twitter, or by email. Even just write your comment right underneath on the web page underneath this video. I'm Ezra Levant. We'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in.